This
so that
conference will
they may
now be
have the full
recorded.
riches of complete understanding, in order that they may know the mystery of God, namely Christ, in whom are hidden all the treasures and knowledge. This is the word of God. Thank be to God.
Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, and we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Thank you, Noble and Nandini. We would like to extend a special welcome to the speaker of the day. Now, I call upon Ms. Shiny to welcome you all for this webinar. Over to you, Shiny.
Good evening to everyone gathered here. I hope everyone is safe and doing good. Thanks to the Almighty God for keeping us safe during this crisis. Now it's my pleasure to extend a cheerful welcome to you all, and on behalf of Loyal Institute of Technology Management, Administrator, Principal, Vice Principal cum HOD of EC Department, we wholeheartedly welcome all the participants for this webinar. On behalf of the department, we, the coordinators, welcome our resource person of today's session, Dr. N. Subhashini, Assistant Professor, Department of ECE, SRM Valiamma Engineering College, Chennai. It's my pleasure to extend a cheerful welcome to you, ma'am, and your presence makes us very happy. And I'm sure we will be enriched by this webinar on problem-solving approach in waveguides. We really thank you, ma'am, for accepting our invitation even during this pandemic. We welcome you wholeheartedly for this webinar. In this context, I also congratulate all the coordinators of this webinar, faculty members of ECE, and professional friends to make this happen. Dear participants, I once again welcome you all for this wonderful technical day. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaili.
Thank you, Shiny, for welcoming all. Now, I call upon Ms. Vinita to introduce our today's speaker, Dr. N. Subhashini ma'am. Over to you, Vinita.
Thank you, Afrin. A very glad welcome to one and all gathered here. I'm Vinita from the Department of EC, and it gives me an immense pleasure to introduce our resource person, Dr. N. Subhashini, Assistant Professor, Department of EC in SRM Valiamma Engineering College, Katangulathur, Chennai. She had completed a PG in BE Electronics and Communication Engineering from the University of Madras in 1998 and completed her MTech in Communication System from SRM University in 2007 and completed a PhD from Anna University in 2020. She is a life member of ISTE, IETE, and IAENG. She has co-authored a book titled Microwave Engineering and published 20 research articles in international and national journals. She has a total teaching experience over 20 years. During her teaching career, she has handled subjects some like EMF, transmission line and waveguide, RF and microwave engineering, antennas and wave propagation, wireless communication, conducted national level seminars, faculty development programs, and co-convener for AICTE, sponsored national level conferences. She had received Best Teacher Award from SRM Valiamma Engineering College. She serves as a reviewer for many international journals. Her research interest includes wireless sensor networks, electromagnetic fields, RF and microwave engineering. And she is with us to make this session more interesting and knowledgeable. Once again, we gladly welcome you, ma'am. Over to you, Afrin.
Thank you, Vinita. Now, most awaited session of the day. Let us enrich our knowledge in problem-solving approach in waveguides. Before handling the session to our speaker, dear participant, if you have any queries during the course of the webinar, kindly post your queries and question in the chat box. All your questions will be answered at the end of the session. Now, our speaker will take over the today's session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Afrin. Ma'am, is that screen is visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good evening, one and all present here. I extend my sincere thanks to Dr. Nalini Joseph, ma'am, who has approached me to present a session and give me the opportunity to hand over this session today. And I also extend my thanks to Indu Mari, ma'am, for communicating me all along the way and doing all the arrangements. And I thank all the participants, student participants of this evening. Hope you'll get a fruitful outcome from this session. Shall I begin, ma'am?
Yes, madam. We're waiting.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So today's session is based upon the problem solving approach in the waveguides, right? So you have read a lot about the waveguides and you know what is transmission lines and what is the need of a transmission line and the waveguide. So when you are going to transmit a signal with a lower frequencies, in that case, transmission line is sufficient. Whereas if you want to transmit a signal at the higher frequencies, by the time you need a secured medium for transmission of the signal, that medium we choose it as a waveguide. So this is our presentation outline today. So we have a very small introduction about the waveguides, about all the sections, and then we'll deal what are the formulas you require to solve the problems, and then we'll step into the problem solving. Okay. So we have a different types of the waveguides. We'll see, well, you have studied all the theoretical part, derivations part already you have completed. Now we'll have a refreshing part of it. We'll have a brief note on the equations that is being involved in each of the waveguides, like parallel plate, rectangular waveguide, and circular waveguide, and what is the significance of each waveguide that we will discuss. So this is an introduction part. So as you know, waveguide is a very strong material which can help you to transmit your data from one end to the another end. Especially, it will be used for the frequencies in the range of gigahertz. So when your frequency starts increasing, in that case, what happens is, so there will be more interference in the noises, which can be minimized completely by means of providing a secured path between the transmitter and the receiver side. You have a guiding structure from the source part to the destination part. So that we'll call this as a waveguide. So when you're talking with respect to the lower frequencies, you have in the form of the voltage and the current. When it is being transformed to the higher frequencies, voltage is being converted in the form of your electric field, and your current is being transformed in the form of magnetic field. So using your Faraday's law and your Ampere's law. So what is the difference between your transmission line and your waveguide probably is, so you have to find out what is the minimum frequency that the waveguide can allow. So that we call it as a cutoff frequency here. So when you are having a decided cutoff frequency for any waveguide, either it can be of a parallel plate, or it can be of a rectangular, or it can be for circular waveguide. So you have to choose one cutoff frequency. Beyond that cutoff frequency, it will start transmitting. So you analyze whether it can be correlated with any of the filters. So this point is essential when you're doing the problems. So it will behave like an high pass filter. So you all know what is high pass filter. From the name it is implied whichever be the frequency is greater than the cutoff frequency. So those high frequency components will be allowed to pass through the filter. So that we call it as an high pass filter. So the same way the waveguide will also behave. You design a waveguide with a cutoff frequency. So beyond that cutoff frequency, all the signals will be allowed to pass through the waveguide. But when your frequency of operation is less than the cutoff frequency, it will be attenuated completely. So that is the point. So this point you have to keep it in mind while doing the problems. And the next part is these are the general points with respect to the waveguides. So it will be made up of a brass, copper, or the aluminum, and it will be a thick wall. You'll have a very thick wall with the inside, the inner wall is being coated with the silver or the gold in order to improve the performance of your waveguide during the transmission of the signal. You want to minimize the losses. For that purpose, we'll coat with the gold or silver. So it will confine all your electromagnetic waves towards the destination. So these are the different structures. So parallel plate waveguide, you can see the transformations. Initially, when you have an open wire line, which is your transmission line, we do not have any secured secured outer covering or the outer sheath to protect the flow of the signal from one point to the another point. So we go for the coaxial cable. Again, for the coaxial cable can transmit the signals till 50 megahertz or so. So that frequency also has to be increased as your application starts improving. So we go for a parallel plate. Again, in the parallel plate, you have a problem. You have only two plates, one at x is equal to 0, another plate at x is equal to a. Only two plates are available. So what happens is the other two sides, all the four sides are open. So due to the open-ended, it have a fringing effect that has been minimized in the case of your rectangular waveguides. You have your boundary in all four directions. Boundary at x equal to 0, x equal to a, and y equal to 0, and y is equal to b. So you have an opening at z direction, which is supposed to be your z direction or the direction of the wave propagation. And finally, when you go for very high-end applications like radar, and you want to monitor the signal transmitted from an antenna, which is being emitted in 360-degree angle, in that case, we have to go for a circular waveguide. So circular wave will be moving. A circular waveguide can sense your signals in all the 360 degrees. So this is the advantage of a circular waveguide. So these points we'll have a glimpse, and then we'll move on to the problem. So transverse electric and the transverse magnetic. What is transverse electric? Transverse, what is the meaning for the transverse? So transverse, otherwise we can call it as a normal, or we can say is the perpendicular, is it not? So when I am going to consider the rectangular waveguide or the parallel plate waveguide, the coordinate system which I am going to choose will be a Cartesian coordinate system, or else you can call it as a rectangular coordinate system. Okay, so you can have your axis like this. So I can consider this as my x-axis, and this as my y-axis, and this as my z-axis. You can orient it anyway. So you can have your electromagnetic wave. Suppose if this is my direction of wave propagation, so my component, electric field component or the magnetic field component, when I am resolving in the rectangular field, I should go for a component like Ex and Ey and Ez. So only these three components are available with respect to the rectangular coordinate system or the Cartesian coordinate system, where you are going to design your rectangular waveguide or the parallel plate waveguide. So if I'm going to consider Z is the direction of the propagation, so the other two directions are normal to it. Always X, Y, Z are mutually perpendicular to it. So when I say transverse electric or the H wave, my electric field component, whichever it is normal or perpendicular to the direction of the wave propagation alone has to exist. Other components should not exist. Okay. So when I'm considering Ex and Ey, this is along the X direction, this is along the Y direction, which is perpendicular to the Z direction. So definitely these two components will survive. And what will happen to the Ez component? Ez component will be along the direction of the propagation. So this can be treated as a longitudinal component. So as the name suggests, transverse electric, I have to take only the transfer components, which is Ex and Ey, and I should ignore this component Ez. So I should write it as Ez component is equal to 0 for the transverse electric wave, uh, if and only the direction of propagation is Z. So when you are doing any question, read the question once or twice. What is the direction of the propagation? According to the direction of the propagation only, you have to decide whether your Ez term has to be 0, or Ex term has to be 0, or Ey has to be 0. So when it comes for the transverse magnetic or the electric wave, now for an example, I'm changing the direction. Now I assume that my X is the direction of the wave. So this is my wave direction. This is an assumption only. Okay. So if this is the assumption of wave direction, so which component has to be 0? So your component here available are Hx, Hy, the same three components in the mag, similar to that of your electric field. So you have Hx, Hy, and the Hz component. So now here, what is your assumption? Your direction of the wave is along the x. So which are the normal component to the x? So these two components are normal to the direction of the wave propagation, and this is my longitudinal component. So this I have to consider as 0, as my direction of wave is x. So when you're solving that for the derivation, you have to read what your question. So you analyze whether your direction of propagation is along the z direction or x direction, and accordingly your field components will also vary. So next one, last one is your transverse electromagnetic wave. So this will not survive inside the closed component. Okay. So now here we can say this is a combination of 1 and 2. So third is the combinations of 1 and 2. If z is the direction of the propagation, supposed to be what is the combination now? I have to make hz equal to 0, which is my longitudinal component, and ez also to be 0, which is my longitudinal component again. So when supposed to be, this is my transverse electromagnetic. When I am making both the field components Ez and Hz equal to 0, I do not have any reference axis or the reference field for the transmission of your signal. So that we call it as a transverse magnetic wave cannot survive in the waveguides. So this is the basics of your transverse electric, and these are the subscript, hope you all know. So TE or TM, it will be represented with a subscript of M and N. So M and N denotes the half cycle variations along the x direction and half cycle variations along the y direction. So as far the parallel plate is concerned, you have only two plates is available, one at x equal to 0 and one at x equal to a. So if I'm having only the plates variations along the x direction, so my M value alone varies and Y value cannot be varied. So for the parallel plate concerned, we have your second subscript to be of 0. So if I'm going to write it as TM or TE, so this first subscript will be taken as the cycle variations along the boundary wall, which is along the x direction, and there is no field variation component along the second direction, which is your y. So these are the basics. You have a parallel plate placed along the YZ plane, you can say, or else one plate is placed at x equal to 0 and x equal to a. So in between these two plates, you have a dielectric medium. So most of the cases, we assume that dielectric medium to be of air, or else you can fill the in-between medium by means of some other dielectrics like glass or wool, something else. So now this is the field components of your transverse electric and the transverse magnetic wave. So EY is the field component here. You can see transverse electric, EZ component is 0. So you based upon the HZ component, we derive these two components. The similar way transverse magnetic, EZ is not equal to 0 and HZ equal to 0. Here HZ will be equal to 0. Based on EZ component, we derive these two components. And now we'll move on to the formulas. So this is your cutoff frequency formula we derive based upon the propagation constant. So what is your propagation constant? If any of my wave is going to travel from one end to the another end, I am not sure the same amplitude will be obtained at the receiver end also. So as the distance starts increasing, my amplitude will also decrease. If the amplitude is going to decrease, that we call it as an attenuation. The signal is get attenuated. If signal is going to travel for longer and longer distance, definitely there will be a delay in the transmission of the signal. So this delay we have to identify that. Based upon the delay we can calculate what is your phase shift. So that we call it as a beta value. So you have two components is being obtained with respect to the propagation of a wave. One is your attenuation based upon the signal amplitude level. Another one is the arrival time. Based on arrival time, you will be getting a phase constant, which is your beta value. So now I can express my propagation constant gamma as a summation of a real term, which is the attenuation constant, and an imaginary term, which is your propagation constant. So this is a general formula we do derive based upon the wave equation. And we have your expression for gamma as square root of m pi by a the whole square minus omega square mu epsilon. Omega can be written as 2 pi f. Is it not? So now you have your m. M denotes the mode order and a denotes the plate separation between the parallel plates. So you have your two plates. Is it not? One plate at one plate will be available at x is equal to 0. Another plate is available at x is equal to a. So these two plates you will be having separated by a distance of a. So that is the denominator value. And at the cutoff frequency, what happens is there is no propagation at all. So how does it, your response, how does it looks? No, it will be like this. So this is my cutoff frequency. Your propagation constant will be completely equal to 0 and your signal will be completely attenuated until then. And here you have only your beta value and here you have only your alpha value. So this is the concept of your wave propagation. So at the cutoff frequency, your propagation constant will be equal to 0. Sorry. And this you can write in terms of the expression like this. The other part is you have two cases when depending upon the propagation constant value. First case is when you are having gamma is equal to 0. At that point, whatever be the frequency you are having, that I'm going to treat it as cutoff frequency. This is one point, right? So second point, what is the second point is if I'm going to have the F value, which is my operating frequency, less than the cutoff frequency, what happens is you have your gamma value to be of purely real. So if gamma value is purely real, we have to consider beta is equal to 0. If beta is equal to 0, it means that there is no propagation. Beta deals with the time shifting. If there is no time shifting with respect to the wave, what does that mean? Your wave is still in one position only. It is not moving. So it is not time invariant. So what we'll do is gamma is equal to alpha, which means that there is no propagation of the wave, and we call this as a evanescent mode or the non-propagation mode. So second part is if you are having your frequency of operation greater than the cutoff frequency, whichever you are going to design, in that case what happens is you are going to get a gamma value to be purely imaginary. If it is purely imaginary, it implies that alpha is equal to 0. There is no attenuation at all and the wave is going to propagate. So we have gamma is equal to j beta. So these points will apply when you are going to do the problem. Okay. So dominant mode concern, in most of the books it will be given like T10 as the dominant mode for the T wave and TM11 they might have given for as a dominant mode for the parallel plate. As I have read in many books, this is somewhat is not applicable because when you are considering a parallel plate, there is no boundary definition along the y direction. Only you have a boundary definitions either along the x direction or along the y direction, considering z as the direction of the wave propagation. Okay. So now you have your dominant mode defined like this will be a right way. So in the question, if they have not mentioned any mode of operation, you can directly go for the dominant mode, which is T10. So what is your dominant mode? Dominant mode is supposed to be the wave with the lowest cutoff frequency. So these are the formulas we are going to use it today. So you know propagation constant gamma is equal to square root of m pi by a the whole square minus omega square mu epsilon. This is the formula, and the cutoff frequency formula you know. At the point of making gamma is equal to 0, we equate this term equal to this and we'll solve for omega is equal to 2 pi f where f is equal to fc and then we'll arrive at this answer. So cutoff wavelength you know, cutoff wavelength you can calculate like lambda c is equal to c divided by fc, like that you can calculate, right? Then you have your guide wavelength. So guide wavelength, this is your formula. So once if you study the formula for parallel plate clearly, you can use the same formula for both rectangular waveguide as well as for the circular waveguide. There is no variations at all. Only variations where you observe is in the computation of the cutoff frequency, you do observe the variations. Other than that, you will not find any variations at all. Same formulas. So you can see in the further problems. So you find it easy. So these are the phase velocity. So phase velocity, we have your Vp is equal to c, which is your velocity of light, which you can take it as 3 into 10 power 8 always, divided by square root of 1 minus fc by f the whole square. Similarly, if it is group velocity, it has to be c into. So you have a cross, you can have a cross check when you compute the numerical value, you can verify whether your Vp value is greater than that of your c. Okay, what is C? C is equal to 3 into 10 to the power of 8 meter per second, which means that it is the velocity of the light. So you can have your velocity of light as a reference. Based on that reference value, you can find out what is the phase velocity. So once while doing a computation, if you go wrong with your FC value or F value, definitely when you arrive at the answer, you can have a cross check whether it is greater than C or less than C. If it is less than C, VP value, if it is less than C, absolutely you can say your computation is wrong. So you can stop over there and you can recheck your answers. Okay. So here, when you compute for VG, which is your group velocity, your checkpoint here is that it has to be less than C, which is the velocity of the light, 3 into 10 power 8. Okay. In finally, always you can cross check with your answer. VG into VP will be equal to your C square. Whatever be the group velocity you find, so that into your phase velocity, that will be equal to the square of the velocity of light. So this is the common term you might have studied already, but just we'll brush it up now. So intrinsic impedance. So this is again, you have mu by epsilon. This is assuming that your value is in the free space. So you have a value, mu can be written as mu naught into mu r. Is it not? So you have your value mu r is equal to 1, which is your relative permeability equal to 1 for the air, and your epsilon r value will be equal to 1 once again for the air. This is the condition we always apply for the air. So here you can have epsilon is equal to epsilon naught into epsilon r. This is the two values. So now what is your mu naught value? Anybody else? What is your mu naught value? Can I have from anybody else?
Four pi into 10 to the power minus 7.
What is the unit for that?
Henry, ma'am.
Not Henry alone. What is the unit?
Henry per meter.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. For the epsilon naught?
8.854 into 10 to the power of minus 12.
Again for the unit for that? Always unit is essential when you're doing your problem. So what is the unit for your epsilon naught? What did you say for mu naught? Mu naught, you said your answer is 4 pi into 10 to the power of minus 7. Is it not? This is your answer. That is your right answer, of course. And you said your unit as Henry per meter. So where does the mu term comes? Mu term comes with the magnetic field. So if it is comes with a magnetic field, it is being associated with an inductor. So you have your inductor unit in terms of the Henry. So we call it as Henry per meter, right? Similarly, when I say this is equal to 1 by the time we have. So again, if your epsilon r is equal to 1, you have your epsilon naught value is 8.854. This is the answer is also right answer. Thank you, girls. So 8.854 into 10 to the power of minus 12 is my value. And what is will be your in the place of the Henry? What I should introduce? So this is epsilon is being associated with your electric field. So what is the element that will use it in the electric field to store energy? Capacitor. So what is the unit of your capacitor? Farad. So I should write it at farad per meter. Okay. So this is the value you have for your mu and epsilon. Substitute it here. So once you substitute it here and then take square root of it, you will get the answer as 377 ohms or 120 pi. So this will be the answer for your intrinsic impedance. So all the formulas whichever we have seen till now will be applicable for both transverse electric and the transverse magnetic. The only difference that we do observe is with respect to the wave impedance. So if the wave impedance here we have Zt is equal to eta divided by square root of, and the key you can see the denominator term. So that denominator terms remains the same for most of the formulas. So you can calculate that formula separately and keep it aside, and you can substitute wherever you require. That will be the right approach of solving your problem. So you can have your ZTE value eta divided by square root of 1 minus FC by F the whole square. Similarly, here for the ZTM, it's in opposite case, eta into. Shariya. So now we'll move on to the problem. So this is a very basic problem. I have made some small changes with this problem and will proceed accordingly. Okay. So now what is your intention? You want to find out the cutoff frequency of TE10 mode, which is your dominant mode operating at the frequency of 1 gigahertz that propagates between the two parallel plates separated by a distance of 3 centimeters. So what are the given values here? Now TE10 it is given. So what is the general representation? You have TEMN, is it not? Now what is your M value here from the given question? It is M is equal to 1 and N is equal to 0. So what is the another parameter they have given? Operating frequency they have given. What is your operating frequency? Your operating frequency is F, which is supposed to be 1 into 10 to the power of 9, which is 1 gigahertz. And finally, you have one more value is being left out, which is 3 centimeter. What is the variable to be assigned for this? What is this actually? Which variable you have to assign? So this is your plate separation, is it not? So what is the variable you can assign for this 3 centimeter? I have a guess. You have a parallel plate. One plate is lying at x is equal to 0. Another plate at x is equal to a. So this is your plate separation, is it not? So now what is your variable to be assigned for 3 centimeter? So this is A, which is your plate separation. Okay, this is the plate separation. So we can see now. So this is your solution. This is the cutoff frequency formula where you can have Fc is equal to m divided by 2a square root of mu into epsilon. So this is the given data. M is equal to 1 from the question I have written. M is equal to 1 and A is equal to, again cash should be taken. It is given in centimeter. So whatever be the values that you going to use it in the formula, that has to be in terms of the meters. So convert into meters and write. So 3 centimeter is given. So convert into meter, 3 into 10 to the power of minus 2 meter, and then you use it in the formula. So what is the frequency of operation? 1 gigahertz is given, and the medium they have given, it is filled with the air. So air is given. So what is the value for the air? Epsilon r equal to 1 and mu r equal to 1. So one more thing I like to say, velocity in general, you have 1 by square root of mu into epsilon. This is the velocity of propagation formula. So when I have this value as 1 by square root of mu naught into epsilon, it means that the velocity of any signal happens in the free space, we have mu or an epsilon r is equal to 1 as we have stated here. So we have 1 divided by square root of mu naught into epsilon naught. So you know what is the value for mu naught and you know what is the value for epsilon naught. Substitute it. When you substituting it, you will get the value as 2.9999 and so on into 10 to the power of 8 meter per second. That I can approximate it and write it as 3 into 10 to the power of 8 meter per second. Like that I can do it, right? So this is my velocity of propagation. So this velocity of the propagation, I can use it wherever I'll get the value as 1 divided by square root of mu epsilon. See here we have the formula m divided by 2a into 1 divided by mu epsilon. So how can I write this? I can write this. This is given as epsilon r equal to 1 and mu r equal to 1. So what will be the value now? 1 divided by square root of mu naught into epsilon naught. What is the value for that? It is 3 into 10 power 8. What is your m value? M value is 1. 1 divided by square root of mu epsilon will be equal to 3 into 10 to the power of 8. And in the denominator, we are going to have 2 into a. What is your a value? A value should be written in terms of the meter always. Cash should be taken here. So you have to write it like 2 into 3 into 10 power minus 2. So substitute it and then what will be the answer? So you can compute your answer like this. So final answer, you'll get it as 5 gigahertz. Correct? Answer correct? Is that answer is right? So I've taken the values very easily. You can compute without using a calculator. See, 3 into 10 power 8. This 10 power minus 2 will go to the numerator, so it will become 10 power 10. And 3 and 3 will get cancelled. You have 1 by 2. So 1 by 2 will be 0.5. So 0.5 into 10 to the power of 10. So which can be written as 5 into 10 to the power of 9. Is it okay? So now this is the very basic problem for computing your cutoff frequency. We'll do some variations with that. So now what is the next question is the same question. Now you have to check whether the wave propagates. What is your answer? Your cutoff frequency 5 gigahertz and your operating frequency is 1 gigahertz. Now tell me whether the wave propagates. What is the condition to check whether the wave propagates or not? Are you putting in chat box?
Students, you can unmute and give the answer.
Anybody else? Give a guess. We have discussed that point also. Your waveguide will always behave like a high pass filter. So now we have deduced your cutoff frequency is 5 gigahertz and your operating frequency is 1 gigahertz. Now tell me whether your signal can propagate or not through the waveguide which you have being proposed here. Say yes or no, that will do. We'll discuss. Anyone from the class? Just to say yes or no, that will do.
No, ma'am.
How do you say it's no? No is the right answer, of course. So you have seen a condition initially, your wave can propagate if and only if your f value is greater than that of your cutoff frequency, because it behaves like your, one second. So this is your condition. So if you are having your, this is the response of a waveguide. So similar to that of your a high pass filter. So this is my cutoff frequency where I have my cutoff frequency as 5 gigahertz. So where does the operating frequency comes now? So it is somewhere around here, which is equal to 1 gigahertz, which is equal to 1 gigahertz. So now it is in the attenuation region. Now this is my alpha and this is my beta. So we have your f value less than that of the cutoff frequency. So we say the wave does not propagate. Okay. So this is another thing you can expect. And the next part is the same question. So only thing is now I have changed the medium between the two parallel plates. Earlier we considered air as the medium between the two parallel plates. Now you are going to consider two parameters where you are going to have a variant as epsilon r, which is your relative permittivity as 4, and your mu r, which is the relative permeability value, which is supposed to be 9. Now once again you have to check whether the wave propagates or not, and you have to identify what type of mode it is. Can you guess now? So the same formula we do have. So m divided by 2a square root of mu epsilon. So what is the variations we have already? So already you can see this is the way, this is the portion we have discussed already. If it is mu naught and epsilon naught, it is going to be 3 into 10 power 8. If I am going to, in addition to it, now I am going to have mu r and the epsilon r value. So substitute that mu r and epsilon r value in the denominator under the radical sign. So that what happens is now this becomes 36, square root of it that will become 6. So already this portion we have computed already. So that value is 5 gigahertz. So 5 gigahertz divided by 6. So your answer is now 0.83 gigahertz. So now what is the frequency, cutoff frequency here? It is 0.83 gigahertz and your operating frequency is 1 gigahertz. So you can come to a conclusion your operating frequency is greater than that of the cutoff frequency. So does the wave can propagate. So this is another problem. And now here we are going to discuss whether what is the propagation constant. Still now we have discussed what is the cutoff frequency, which is a very primitive question with respect to the parallel plate waveguide. Next point, we have to check what is the propagation constant with respect to the wave. So propagation constant, again I'm saying, it is a combination of your attenuation constant and the phase constant. You have only two possibilities. Either the wave can propagate, which means that there is a movement of the signal from one point to the another point, or else you can say the wave does not propagate, where you can experience only the attenuation alone. So these are the two probabilities that you can experience with respect to the electromagnetic wave. Now, what is your formula? You have your formula for gamma as square root of h square minus omega square mu epsilon. Now, omega can be written as 2 pi f, as you all know. And now you check whether what is the medium you have in between the two parallel plates. So the medium between the two parallel plates is supposed to be your air. So air means it's always easy for you. You can substitute your mu naught and epsilon naught value. With that value, you can compute it easily. So you have your m value, again the same thing. First question only we are proceeding, but with a slighter modifications. So we have your TE10 mode. So TE10 mode, again we have your m value is equal to 1. So this value we substituted here, and A, again this is in centimeter, use it in meters and then substitute. So when I'm substituting it, I'm having a value, this m pi by a value is greater than that of your omega square mu epsilon value. If it is so, when I take the square root of it, I'll get a real quantity. There will not be any imaginary value at all. No imaginary value means I can conclude that gamma is alpha, which is purely real quantity, which means that beta is equal to 0. We are equating left hand side to the right hand side, because what is your gamma value? Gamma is equal to alpha plus j beta. So equate real part with the 102.55, right? And there is no imaginary part at all. It means that plus j into 0. So beta is equal to 0. So if beta is equal to 0, it implies that no wave propagation. So no wave propagation. Here, if there is no wave propagation, then what will happen to that signal? That signal will get attenuated completely. So this is the point where we come to a word called evanescent mode. So we have your conclusion for this problem as, so your gamma is being computed. From the gamma computed value, you can analyze, you have a whether you have a real part or the imaginary part. If you have a real part alone, we can say the signal is a non-propagating or the evanescent mode, because it does not move from one place to the another place. It remains still. And you have the attenuation alone being applied to the signal. So this is the conclusion of this problem. So next what we'll do is, we have to find out the other parameters also, like guide wavelength, group velocity, phase velocity, and the wave impedance. So initially, when you are seeing about the group velocity and the phase velocity, we have a point. What is that point? Your group velocity value will always less than that of your velocity of the light, and the phase velocity will always greater than the velocity of light. Then you have to compute your wave impedance. So wave impedance formula will be different for your transverse electric and the transverse magnetic, whereas rest of the formulas are the same. So whatever be the formulas that you're going to deduce, that you're going to use it for TE, that remains the same for TM also. So there will not be any variation. So all the formulas, once you study for parallel plate, the same thing is applicable for rectangular waveguide as well as for the circular waveguide also. That too, it matches for both the TE as well as TM. So now these are the formulas we have for the guide wavelength. So these are the values you need to find out. So guide wavelength, group velocity, phase velocity, and the wave impedance. These four parameters we are going to find. And these are the formulas that you are supposed to use. So what is your lambda g? First, we'll find out your guide wavelength. So guide wavelength, if you want to find, first thing is you have to find out the lambda value. So that is one point. So compare all the formulas. So you can see all the formulas, which is common term square root of 1 minus fc by f the whole square is the common term in all the formulas. See, there are 4 different parameters you need to compute, but in all the 4 formulas, you have a common term which is square root of 1 minus fc by f the whole square. So this remains here, this remains here, this remains here. So one point is, if you compute the value of square root of 1 minus fc by f the whole square initially, so that can be utilized for all the 4 parameter computations, and with your work becomes simpler. You can save your time. Okay. So now first point is, what is the value you have to find? Cutoff frequency is not given in the question. So you have to find the cutoff frequency formula. Use a cutoff frequency formula, find cutoff frequency, and lambda is not given. So you have to find lambda. Like that, gradually we'll proceed. Okay. So now this is the given data. Whatever be the given data, you can write it first, and from the given data, you can think over how you have to use these values in your formulas. So that will be the next step. So first thing, what is your intention? You want to find out that common term of square root of 1 minus fc by f the whole square. You have to find. So for that, initially you need to compute your fc value. So fc value, how do you find? Fc is equal to m divided by 2a square root of epsilon. So as we have discussed already, so you know what is your mu 1 by square root of mu naught into epsilon, which is 3 into 10 power 8, and m is your one value as we are going for the dominant mode, and a is the plate separation, which is 3 into 10 power minus 2 meter. So with that you'll get fc value. Substitute that fc value. Here I have used 5, this is 5 gigahertz and this is 10 gigahertz. So 10 power 9 and 10 power 9 numerator and the denominator get cancelled, and you'll arrive at the value of 0.87. So this is your answer. So this 0.87, you can use it for all the 4 parameter computations, which is common for all. So next part is, now we are going to find out your guide wavelength. Upper guide wavelength, when you're about to find, so the numerator, what is the unknown quantity here? Numerator term is your unknown quantity. So denominator, just now we have determined, it is 0.87. So you can find out what is your lambda value. So what is lambda value? You know, lambda is equal to, your wavelength can be computed by the velocity by the frequency. So here, as it is, the air is the medium of propagation, velocity v can be replaced by means of velocity of light, which is c. So you have c divided by f. So f is 10 gigahertz, substitute it, and you'll get the answer for lambda. So once you get the answer for lambda, what is lambda g now? Lambda g is equal to 0.03 in the numerator and divided by 0.87, which you have computed earlier. So divide it, you will arrive at an answer. So this is the guide wavelength. So the wavelength of the signal that is being guided over the waveguide. So this can be written as in terms of the meter you can write, or else you can write in terms of the centimeter also. 3.4 centimeter or 0.034 meter. So this is our first subdivision. So second subdivision is your group velocity. So again you see, now what your known factor is square root of 1 minus fc by f the whole square. This is your known factor, where you have the value of 0.87. This is the value you have assigned. And what is c value? C into 3 into 10 power 8. So substitute that value and 0.87 value in the place of square root of 1 minus fc by f the whole square. You will get a value. So now you check your answer. What is your condition? We have stated already. Always your group velocity will be less than that of your velocity of the light, because the group velocity is being associated with a complex wave generally, which will comprises of many harmonics of a signal. If you consist of harmonics of a signal, so each and every frequency components will have its own delay. Based on that delay, the velocity may differ. So that results in the average velocity bit to be of less than that of the velocity of a light, which is being focused by means of one single wavelength. So you all now your answer is right. So you have your logically your answer is right, but numerically you have to verify your answer. So Vg, your group velocity is less than c. So next part we go for a phase velocity. So now what is your logic? You have to be VP value, phase velocity value should be greater than the velocity of the light. So you should get a value greater than 3. So you can use your formula as such. C 3 into 10 power 8, and you have computed already square root of 1 minus fc by f the whole square as 0.87. Use it here and you'll get the value as 3.45 into 10 power 8 meter per second. So this is the value greater than that of the C. So now this is also logically correct. So you can multiply these two values and verify your answer. It will be square of your C square. You can check it. So the last part is your wave impedance value. Now wave impedance value is that is eta divided by square root of 1 minus fc by f the whole square. What is eta actually? Eta is your intrinsic impedance. Again, as it is given, it is air. You can directly use your value 377. Else, you have to substitute your mu r and epsilon r value in under the radical sign computed. After that, only you have to substitute for the ZT. So this is how you can substitute it here. 377 divided by 0.87, whichever computed value in the beginning itself, and you arrive at the answer of 433.33. Now this T will be always greater than that of your 377. So if you're going for a TM, so this is the formula. The same if the same question is asked for TM, we are rest of all the formulas are the same. Only the variations where you observe, only variations you can see in the wave impedance only. Rest of the parameters are the same. So you compute all those the remaining three parameters value same as of your transverse electric. And when it comes for the wave impedance, you use your formula as eta into square root of 1 minus fc by f the whole square. You can take your value of square root of 1 minus fc by f the whole square as 0.87, multiply by 377, and then you find the answer as 327.99. So this will be lesser than that of your 377. This logic also you can follow when you are computing the value. Okay. Now with this, we'll stop here for the problems related to the parallel plate. Then we move on to the rectangular waveguide. So I'll go for the problems directly. Okay. So these are the basic structure. Only 2 points I like to say for the rectangular waveguide. Always you have a broader wall dimension as A and the narrow wall dimension is B. So your height will be always less than that of your width. This you have to keep it in mind. And you again here also you can observe only two types of more waves, that is your TE waves and the TM waves. So same as the previous case. So you have three types of modes. One is transverse electric, another one is your transverse magnetic wave and transverse electromagnetic. Now here only difference is you have one more component is being added, because now what is your confinement? Now you have two portions. This is one portion where I can have y is equal to 0 and y is equal to b. This is one boundary I can assume. Another boundary I can assume it here. So where I can have x is equal to a, and in the bottom I can have x is equal to 0. So I have a wall. This is my structure. So this is the x-axis. This is x is equal to a wall. Sorry, x is equal to 0 wall. And this wall is going to be x is equal to a. This is one boundary. And here this is another boundary where you can have y is equal to 0 and y is equal to b. So these are the four boundaries you have. So when I am mentioning it here, now I can express the subscript of TE and TM by means of MN. So M represents the two cycle variations along the x direction, and N represents the cycle variations along the y direction. So these are the two things you can observe it. Earlier that is not the case when it comes for the parallel plate. Now for the rectangular waveguide, you can easily observe the M and N value clearly. Okay. So these are the field components you can have. So earlier you have only one component. Now one more component is being appended to it. And these are the formulas that you're going to use it. So now you can see whatever be the formula that you have used it earlier, there are same formulas here also. Only difference you can observe here is once again with respect to the gamma as well as your cutoff frequency. So here you can see, oh, this is your general term. There is no change at all. This general term remains the same for both parallel plate, rectangular waveguide, even for the circular waveguide, the same thing. Because we are going to derive it from the wave equation, so this remains the same. So only thing is this h value earlier what we have considered is only there is the variations along the x direction. So I'll consider only as m pi by e earlier. Now what you are going to have is m pi by a. There is one value you have. Another term, this is m pi by a the whole square I should have. This is along the x direction. Another term we have along the pi direction, where n is the integer once again. So n pi by b the whole square. So in addition to the term m pi by a the whole square, you are having one more term which is n pi by b the whole square. This term is an additional term due to the variations along the boundary wall of y is equal to 0 and y is equal to b. So you can have your cutoff frequency value 1 by square root of 2 pi into square root of mu epsilon. Earlier what you have is in the term irikadu. For the parallel plate, you will not have this term. So that what will happen is square root of m pi by a the whole square will come under the radical sign. So square and the radical sign get cancelled and you have your formula as m by 2a into square root of mu epsilon. So you have one more term so being appended. So that you will have an extension of the term under the radical sign is m pi by a the whole square. Suppose if I am going for the resonant, what happens is, so I have to add one more term along the z direction, because in that direction also I'll close. So I have to add p pi by d the whole square. Like that I can add it for the resonant. Only change you have to do that only. Rest of the things are the same. So here I'll erase it. So this is applicable only for the resonant. So evanescent mode, again as usual, if you are having your gamma value to be real, we'll call it as an evanescent mode by the time beta 0. And propagation mode, we have your alpha is equal to 0 and you have your gamma value to be of purely imaginary. These are the conditions we need to check. You can have a fast overview of all the formulas. The same formulas whichever you have seen already, the same thing. See, phase velocity c divided by square root of 1 minus fc by f the whole square, and loop velocity, guide wavelength, cutoff wavelength, everything are the same. Even this wave impedance formula is also same. Only difference of where you come across is in computing your cutoff frequency and the propagation constant. These are the 2 points where you can find out the difference between the parallel plate and the rectangular wave. Right? So this is the dominant mode. So dominant mode always means the minimum cutoff frequency mode. So dominant mode, you can have your dominant mode for the transverse electric as T10 and the dominant mode for transverse magnetic as TM11. So if they have not specified anything like T or TM in the question, so by default you can choose T10 mode, which will be very much convenient for you to compute your formula and find out your answer. So whereas here dominant mode TM11 means under the radical sign you will have both the terms m pi by a the whole square plus n pi by b the whole square. Both the terms will be available. So that in that case it will be difficult for you to compute your answer. Instead of that, you can choose T10 mode, which will be convenient for you to computing your answer and arrive very clearly. So this is the question we have. First one is you have to find out what is the minimum frequency that you can propagate in an air-filled rectangular waveguide with an inner wall dimensions of 4 centimeter cross 10 centimeter. Okay. Here it is. It should be 10, and this is 4. Okay. So always the broader wall dimension will be your A value and your narrow wall dimension will be your B. So you can have your cutoff frequency formula. This is your cutoff frequency formula, and it is you need to find out minimum frequency. So which mode will have minimum frequency? Dominant mode will have the minimum cutoff frequency. So I have to choose the dominant mode. Either I can go for TM11 or else I can go for TE10. Preferably you choose TE10. So M is 1 and N is equal to 0. Substituted here the values of A and B once again. Remember, you have to substitute all your answer in terms of the meters only. So substitute your value in terms of the meter, and then you evaluate. So you can find out this is M value 1 and N value which is 0. So 0 into anything is going to be 0. So this term will get eliminated. So this will reduce to 0 and it will be left out with only one term. This term alone it will be left out. So you have here under the radical sign you have pi square divided by 10 to into 10 power minus 2 the whole square. So removed from the radical sign, pi and pi will get cancelled and you have your term 10 power minus 2 into 10 power minus 2 the whole square. So you have 10 power 4. So final answer cutoff frequency can compute which is 1.5 gigahertz. So this is the minimum frequency, or you can say this is the cutoff frequency of a dominant mode. So next question is, you have your rectangular waveguide. So you have your you have to check your dimension. So whichever be the larger value, I have to take it as A, and whichever be the minimum value, I have to take it as B. So obtain the cutoff frequency for the dominant mode of TM wave. So what is your dominant mode for the TM wave? So TM11, which means that M is equal to 1 and the value of N is equal to 1. So you can have A and B value here. Use your formula Fc is equal to 1 by 2 pi square root of mu epsilon into square root of m pi by A the whole square plus n pi by B the whole square. So substitute all the values and you will arrive at the answer, which is the cutoff frequency of your rectangular wave. Okay. So now this is another problem. So now here the reverse. So earlier you have given the value of A and B. You have to find out what is the cutoff frequency. Now read the question. So compute the inner broad wall dimension of a rectangular waveguide. Broad wall dimension means the parameter you need to find is A. So of the rectangular waveguide. So it has a dominant mode with a cut of T10 and with a cutoff frequency of 18 gigahertz for the T30 mode. This is another mode. Okay. So now you have to substitute it here for T30 mode. Fc is equal to 18 gigahertz and M and N values also given. Substitute it here for the cutoff frequency formula. Once if you substitute your M value is equal to 3 and N value is equal to 0, the left hand side is cutoff frequency is given. It is 18 gigahertz. So you can substitute in the left hand side and you can find out your answer, which is your unknown quantity here. A is the unknown quantity. So because this term as N is equal to 0, this term will reduce to 0. So there is no matter of B in this place. So your intention in the question is you have to find out the broader wall dimension. Only that alone you need to find. So you can find out what is the broader wall dimensions of A from this by cross multiplying, and you'll arrive at the answer of A. So it is 0.025 meters. So you can convert into centimeter and you can write the final answer as the broader wall dimension. This is one approach. Giving the given value will be your cutoff frequency values of any two modes or anything else they can give, and then with that you can find out your broader wall dimensions. So then next point is have to find out what is the propagation constant. So what is your propagation constant formula? Gamma is equal to square root of m pi by A the whole square plus n pi by B the whole square plus minus omega square mu epsilon. This is your formula. Okay. So now you have to find what are the given data. So always analyze what are the given data and then you proceed. So here you have propagation constant. You need to find for the dominant mode. So dominant mode means either I can go for T10 mode or else I can go for TM11 mode. So whichever it is okay for you, you can choose it. But preferably T10 mode is so good. So here you can go for a rectangular waveguide with the dimensions of A and B as it is given, and the operating frequency is also given as 10 gigahertz. So when I use a formula, this is my formula. I can use this and check whether it is propagating, whether you can compute a propagating or not, or else I can go directly for the formula. In the form, you can use this formula directly, or else you can find out whether there is a possibility of finding your propagation constant or not. So now I have determined the cutoff frequency. What is the cutoff frequency here? 6.56 gigahertz. What is your operating frequency? It is 10 gigahertz. It is 10 gigahertz. So your operating frequency is greater than the cutoff frequency. So there is a possibility of wave propagation. So when you are finding out f value greater than fc, what is the conclusion? You will have a beta value, but you will not have an alpha value, which means that alpha is equal to 0. So you can use your formula gamma value and cross check it. This is your gamma value formula. With that, you can substitute the value for m and n, and f value omega is equal to 2 pi f, which is treated as f is equal to 10 gigahertz, and mu r and epsilon r equal to 1, as it is free space. Substitute all your values and arrive at the answer. So when you find out the answer, you have a negative sign under the radical sign. You have a negative value under the radical sign. So which means that square root of a negative will result in an imaginary value. When I'm having an imaginary value, I can equate that gamma value to the imaginary value, treating real part as 0. If the real part is 0, what is left behind? Your propagation constant is equal to phase constant, which is equal to 204.77 per meter, radians per meter, or other. Ma'am, shall I proceed, ma'am?
Yeah,
Indu,
madam.
ma'am?
You proceed, madam.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah,
Thank you,
sure.
ma'am. So now this is our problem 7. So earlier in the rectangular waveguide, first we have find out how to find out your cutoff frequency. Then we have determined how to find the Brauer wall dimension. Then we have verified whether the propagation is possible or not. If so, what is the beta value? So next approach is you have to find out your cutoff frequency. Now the question is different. No value is given here. Neither A nor B. Both the values are unknown quantity here. You have to find out both the values. How do you find both the values? First, you have to find both the values. After identifying a value A and the value B, you have to use those value in T01 mode, and then you have to compute. Okay. So now the instruction given in the question is the internal wall dimension. This is your usual instruction as usual. A value is greater than B, which means that broader wall dimension is A and your narrow wall dimension is B. Now the rectangular waveguide will have a cutoff frequency of 6 gigahertz when the dominant mode is T10, and it will have a cutoff frequency of 15 gigahertz when your dominant mode TM11 propagates inside the same rectangular waveguide. You are using one single waveguide. Via that waveguide, two different dominant modes are allowed to propagate with a different cutoff frequencies, right? So here we have given the given data as a T10 mode with a cutoff frequency of 6 gigahertz, and TM11 mode with a cutoff frequency of 15 gigahertz. So you can see the cutoff frequency formula. This is our cutoff frequency formula. Now the left hand side value is known to you and the right hand side value is unknown to you. This is the problem here. So left hand side value, normally what we'll do is we'll substitute the value for M and N, A and B, and find out the value of FC. Now the reverse. So you have the left hand side value, FC value, and you need to compute what is the value of A and B. So here we can have your cutoff frequency formula. Left hand side value, we have 6 gigahertz for the T10 mode, which means that M value is equal to 1 and your N value is equal to 0. So this is the criteria that you need to substitute in your formula. So if I'm going to have N is equal to 0, what happens is this term completely reduced to 0. So you have only unknown variable A is available here in the right hand side. So cross multiply it. After cross multiplying it, you will arrive at the answer for A. So A into 10 power minus 2. It means that still now it is in the form of the meters only. So you can convert that into centimeter and write it as 2.5 centimeter. So here this will be your answer. So this is next cutoff frequency. Now what your A value is known to you. Okay, now this is A value is known to you. If A value is known to you, what is the next step? You need to find only the B. You have two unknown quantities earlier. One is A, another one is B, and the known quantity are the cutoff frequency of two dominant modes. So using the first dominant mode, we have determined the value of A. So this part is over. And now what is the unknown quantity? Unknown quantity is B alone. So you substitute the value of A also, the left hand side cutoff frequency also for the next dominant mode of TM11. So using that, you can find out what is your B value. So your B value now you can cross multiply, check your answer, and then you'll arrive at the value of B value as 1.09 centimeter. So now you know what is the value of A. A value is 2.5 centimeter and B value is 1.09 centimeter. What is your question? You have to find out the cutoff frequency for the mode TE01. So TE01, here m is equal to 0, n is equal to 1. Substitute in the formula of cutoff frequency 1 by 2 pi square root of mu epsilon square root of m pi by a the whole square plus n pi by b the whole square. In the place of a, 2.5 centimeter. Write in terms of the meter again. So here again B should be written in terms of meter. Once again 1.09 meter, and then you can write your answer for cutoff frequency by substituting all your determined values. So your cutoff frequency for TE01 is 13.76 gigahertz. So this is the variant you can normally get for the rectangular waveguide, right? So three types we have seen. So one with respect to the cutoff frequency alone. Another, you can find your Brauer wall dimensions alone. Next, you can find out the entire dimensions alone. Next thing is you can find out the cutoff guide wavelength, the wave impedance, like that. Also, you can find out similar to that of your parallel plate. So I did not touch that. The next part is your circular waveguide. So what is your circular waveguide? So when you are considering the first two cases, the parallel plate and the rectangular waveguides, we deal only with the rectangular coordinate system, or we'll say it's a power dealt with only with the Cartesian coordinate system. When it comes for the circular waveguide, we cannot move, we cannot go ahead with the rectangular waveguide. So what we'll do is we go for a circular waveguide. So any point in the circular waveguide can be identified with the coordinate points of r, theta, and Z. So R will be the radius of your cylinder and theta will be the angle made by the plane with respect to the x-axis, and Z is supposed to be the height of your cylinder. Using these three parameters only, the circular waveguide will also get designed. Once you design a circular waveguide, there is a very big confusion with respect to the wave equation solutions. So the wave equation solution can be achieved only with the help of a Bessel function. So use the Bessel function in order to find out the roots for that wave equations. So when you find the roots, again there will be a definition. There will be a difference with respect to the transverse magnetic, which is your TM, and there will be a difference with respect to the transverse electric, which is your TE wave. When I go for TE wave, I should take the derivative of Bessel function roots. Whereas if I go for the TM wave, I should go for a Bessel function roots alone. We do not go for a derivative. So these are the dominant modes for the circular waveguides. As usual, we have your N and M M and N representation. So M denotes your variations with respect to the field cycle, and N denotes the order of the Bessel function which you're going to use it for obtaining the roots of the wave equations. Okay. So T11 and T01 are the modes with the dominant modes with respect to the transverse electric and the transverse magnetic. And this is the table you need to use it for obtaining the solution for the problem. So without the table values, you can't do it. So at least for few terms, you have to memorize it. So which is being highlighted over here in the blue colors. So which can be utilized in common. So that is for the dominant mode, definitely you need to know. So dominant mode of your TM is TM01 and the T, it is 1. So you can identify, this is the subscript you can identify. This is 1, the M is equal to 1. It means that 1 1 T 1 1. So this is 2 and here 1, it means that this is column comes first and the row comes next. Okay, so T21 this value, and this is T31 this value, like that. So you can memorize few of the values. If they are asking the question based on the circular waveguides, definitely they'll give you the values within a bracket. If not, for the dominant mode, you need to use it. So dominant mode here, this 1.8412 you have to memorize. The same way here, 0, 1 value. So this value you have to memorize. So these two values you have to memorize. Okay. So cutoff frequency formula here, there is a difference, only difference between the other two waveguides and the circular waveguides is you have to represent the cutoff frequency formula in terms of the Bessel function. So if it is magnetic wave, you have to use it nth order Bessel function with an argument of the radius, whichever you are going to use it. So xnm. So here in the same way, this is the mode order, and n represents the order of the Bessel functions you use it, and a denotes the radius of your circular waveguide. So this is a formula derivative of the root which is being utilized for finding out the solution of the wave equation in the cylindrical coordinate system. So this is derivative, and this is as such you are going to use it, Chern Bessel function. So the same thing you can observe it. So same equation only thing is you have a derivative representation for the transverse elective compared to that of a transverse magnetic. So there is a problem here. So what is your problem is you have your inner radius, which is A, radius of your cylindrical waveguide 1 centimeter, and it is excited in the dominant mode. So dominant mode alone they have given, always preferably you can choose your transverse electric, that will be an optimal choice. Find the cutoff frequency, guide wavelength, and the wave impedance. So how do you find your cutoff frequency? So formula, you know, cutoff frequency formula, as I have taken a dominant mode T11. So Jn dash of xnm 2a, a represents the radius of your cylinder, which is 1 centimeter. Again you have to substitute in terms of the meter. And what is the medium you have inside your circular waveguide? It's in air. So you can write it as 1 by square root of mu into epsilon as 3 into 10 power 8. Now Jn dash of xnm, you go to the table. So if it is available in the table, they will be providing you the table values, or else you have to memorize for the dominant mode. It is given 1.8412, right? So you can use that in the value here. Use a value here, 1.8412, 3 decimal places is sufficient. Only point difference you can observe. So 1.841, from the table I've written 1 by square root of mu epsilon, which is 3 into 10 power 8 we have written, and 2 pi, and what is your A value? A value is given as 1 centimeter. That you can write as 1 into 10 power minus 2. So this is the cutoff frequency formula that we have obtained for the dominant mode. So what is the next point? Guide wavelength. So again, you can see the same formula which you have used in the parallel plate. So guide wavelength formula is lambda divided by square root of fc by f the whole square. Same thing, only difference in all the three waveguides is how to compute your cutoff frequency and your propagation constant. Only you can identify the difference over there. The rest of the formula structure are the same. So you know what is lambda? Lambda is equal to C by F. So because air is the medium, so I can use lambda value C by F. And in the denominator, substitute the value, cutoff frequency value, whichever we have obtained it here previously, which is 8.794. And substitute here and find the answer. Okay. The same way, wave impedance value for ZTE, it is zeta divided by square root of Fc by F the whole square. As I said earlier, if you calculate the square root of 1 minus Fc by F the whole square formula separately, that can be used in the formula directly. So that will be convenient for you. So next variant with respect to the circular waveguides is, so you need to find out cutoff frequency and the guide wavelength for the dominant mode. This is almost the same, but only difference is here you have epsilon r value. Earlier it was treated as air as a medium. So here you have to introduce in the denominator square root of epsilon r. That is 2.25 only you have to introduce. That is the change. Rest are the same. So 1.841 is my dominant mode Bessel function value, and 1 by square root of mu naught epsilon naught value will be 3 into 10 power 8, and 2 pi a value, it is given 4 into 4 centimeters, so 4 into 10 power minus 2. Here epsilon r is given, so I should not forget to introduce that. So 1 by square root of mu into epsilon you have to write. So this generally we write it as 1 by square root of mu naught into mu r into epsilon naught into epsilon r. Okay. So mu naught into epsilon naught value, we'll get the answer as 3 into 10 to the power of 8. Epsilon, if mu r value is not specified, by that time you can take your mu r value as 1. So what is left behind in the denominator? Only epsilon r under the radical sign is left out. So we can use that here. 3 into 10 power 8 divided by square root of epsilon r, which is 2.25. So substitute it here and you will arrive at the value of cutoff frequency of 1.47 gigahertz. So one more problem is to go. And this is your guide wavelength. Same thing, same formula, no variations at all. So parallel plate, whatever be the formula I've studied, the same formula you can use it. Only thing is you have to focus towards the calculation of cutoff frequency and the propagation constant. So now we find how we will now check how to compute the propagation constant for a circular waveguide. For the parallel plate waveguide, you have your propagation constant. There is a variations in the propagation constant formula. So for the parallel plate waveguide, we have gamma is equal to square root of m pi by a the whole square. This is my formula. We have m pi by a the whole square minus omega square mu epsilon. This is the formula we have used to compute the propagation constant for the parallel plate. Then we have moved on to the rectangular waveguide. For the rectangular waveguide, we have a propagation constant value as m pi by a the whole square. M pi by a the whole square term you have plus this will be of n pi by b the whole square term minus omega square mu epsilon. Okay, only this portion, this h square will be varied. Here, what happens is you have your propagation constant value to be determined as h square. So that is the variation. So whereas here h square will be j n dash of x n m divided by a. If it is going to be your transverse electric. If not, it will be Jn of xnm divided by A. So if it is to be of your transverse magnetic, okay. So you have your problem 9 deals with the propagation constant. So as usual, you have to find out your cutoff frequency, check what whether it is given in the different mode, or else you can proceed in the same dominant mode itself. So substitute for your dominant mode root 1.841, find out your cutoff frequency. After finding out the cutoff frequency, find the guide wavelength also, the same thing, whatever we have done it already. And the after finding out your guide wavelength, you have to express in terms of the meters. Then you go for a propagation constant. So propagation constant only variation. So as I have shown earlier, for the parallel plate, m pi by a the whole square minus mu square mu omega square mu epsilon. For the rectangular waveguide, m pi by a the whole square plus n pi by b the whole square minus omega square mu epsilon. And for the last case, for the transverse electric, we have to replace your h by j n dash of x n m by a. If it is going to be transverse magnetic, I should use it as jn of xnm divided by E. So this is the variation you have to do for the transverse magnetic, and the remaining things are okay. Now here you can find out your answer, whether it is a wave will propagate or not. You can put under the radical sign h square value and your omega square mu epsilon value, treating your omega value to be f value to be of 3 gigahertz. When you substitute it under the radical sign, you have a negative quantity, so that you have a j term. So it means that it is a beta term. There is no alpha term. So this is your inference for the problem. This problem. So you have your no attenuation value. Alpha is equal to 0, and your beta value is supposed to be radians per meter, where the wave can propagate. Okay. So with this, I think all the three circular waveguide problems is being covered. Only this much you have. Only for you have to focus towards your basic formulas of lambda g, your guide wavelength, phase velocity, and the group velocity, and you can have to find out your cutoff frequency formula variations with respect to all the three waveguides. With that, you can do all the problems very easily. The same thing. Once, if you have listened to this session, definitely you might be observed. I'm using the same formula for all the three waveguides. Variations is being seen only with respect to the propagation constant, as well as with respect to the top your cutoff frequency. Else, nowhere else you can see the variations. So these are the five. We'll stop it here with the applications of your waveguide. So you have different applications with respect to the waveguide. You can move on to the TV station also, where you want to generate a signal, TV signals, and it has to be given to the satellite. So the medium between the satellite and that of your TV station, definitely TV ground station, definitely they'll be using your waveguides. So the waveguide shapes may differ depending upon the place where it is going to be implemented and to accommodate the place. So these are the different areas of applications. One is it can be used for the radar purpose, and you can use it for the satellite communications, and wherever you want to, that is like a beam tracking. If you want to track a beacon, in that case you can go for a circular waveguides, and you can integrate a photonic circuits along with the waveguides, which will be much effective combination, and can be utilized for the optical communications. And wherever you want to handle a huge amount of the power, by the time you cannot go for a very low transmission lines, very low power transmissions like coaxial cable or twin pair wire or open wire line, which cannot carry your high energy. So when you want to handle a high power energy, in that case you prefer a waveguide rather than that of the other mode of transmission lines. And definitely the waveguides can be effectively utilized in the spacecrafts. So these are the waveguides applications. Uh, I'll stop here. If you have any queries, I can listen to your queries and answer. I think many of you have posted questions in the chat box. Ma'am, I need screen sharing for answering the session.
Yeah, okay, ma'am. Students, okay, ma'am, I'll just have it.
So first question, thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your knowledge with us. It was very useful to us, ma'am. Sure, we will apply the skills in our future career. Once again, we thank you, ma'am. The first step to receiving
Yes,
an
ma'am.
answer is brave enough to ask a question. Now, let us call Selvarasu to take over the question and answer session. Over to you, Selvarasu.
Thank you, Afrin. Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your knowledge with us. There are some questions in chat box. The first question is, which condition holds a good waveguide, ma'am?
The condition, when you want to transmit a signal, the first part is the fringing effect has to be eliminated. So that is the the highest priority during the transmission of the signal. So it has to be bounded in all the directions, and the fringing effect has to be reduced, and the propagation loss has to be minimized. That will be a very good waveguide.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am, for your answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Next question, ma'am. Which metal is
Yes, ma'am.
probably used in waveguide and why it is used, ma'am?
probably in most of your labs, we can observe the waveguide to be made up of brass. That is the preferable material. Apart from brass, you can go for aluminum.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for your answer. We have another question, ma'am. Why
Yes, ma'am.
circular waveguides are not prepared over rectangular waveguides, ma'am?
Actually, configuration-wise, rectangular waveguides is very easy to design compared to that of your circular waveguides. And one more point is these rectangular waveguides is more advantageous during the transmission part. The circular waveguides, we have a combinations of r, theta, and phi. So the angle arrangement will be very much difficult, and it is being confined. It has to be designed only specifically for one particular frequency. So that is also a disadvantage of a circular waveguide.
Thank you, ma'am. Next question. Why T10 mode does not exist in the circular waveguide, ma'am?
T10 mode will not exist in the circular. It will be it cannot survive in the circular waveguide, I should say. So how do you choose your dominant mode? Is you have set of equations, is it not? You have your field component equations available. So you have to substitute. Can I have that? Can I have a sharing of my screen for a minute? Can I share my screen for a minute?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
I think that provision is not available for me now.
1 second, ma'am. I'll share.
Yes, yes. Now it is there. So in the beginning, we have a set of field component equations, is it not? So for the circular waveguides, I have not written the field component equations. I'll say with respect to the parallel plate or with a rectangular waveguide. Once again. So you have to substitute the value for m is equal to 1 or m is equal to 0, and you have to check which are the non-zero field components available. So suppose if I'm substituting m is equal to 1, if all my components are 0, in that case I should not choose my minimum order as 1. So I should go for the next order. Like that only we'll choose your m and the n value. Similarly, for the circular waveguides, when I'm substituting for m is equal to 1 and n is equal to 0, if all my components become 0, I cannot go for that. See, in this equation, you can check when I substitute m is equal x here, I can substitute the value for m is equal to 1, and you can substitute the value for x is equal to a. So check whether all the components are surviving. If all the components are surviving, in that case, that is the minimum value. If all the components, field components are 0, so that has to be ignored. That order has to be ignored, and we have to move on for the next value. So 1 minute. See, I have to check it here. So x is equal to a, I can substitute. When I substitute m is equal to 1, okay, m is equal to 1 and x is equal to a sin pi. So sin pi value will be equal to 0. Again here sin pi is also is equal to 0. And here what happens is cos m is equal to 1 and x is equal to a will get cancelled and cos pi will be there. So cos pi is minus 1. So this component will survive for m is equal to 1, and the value for m is equal to 1, you have to check it here also whether it will survive. So whichever be the minimum m value for which the field components, at least one field components exist, so that will decide the minimum order of the mode. So if I'm going to substitute m is equal to 0, what happens is, so sine 0 is 0, sine 0 is 0 here. Again here it is cos 0 is 0, but a and cos 0 is 1. So this component will survive. So we can have your combinations of T10 mode for the parallel. So here for the circular waveguide, the same similar set of equations we do have, like E rho, E phi, and Ez term. You have to substitute m is equal to 1 and n is equal to 0. If though for those two combinations, if all the field components are surviving, or at least one field component are surviving, in that case we'll say that field exists with respect to the circular waveguide. If not, we'll say it is not possible. So the same thing is applicable here also. Any other questions, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. We
Thank you
have another
for
question, ma'am.
yes, ma'am.
Out of three waveguide, which one is most probably used in real-time applications, ma'am?
As far the design concerned, rectangular waveguide is preferable. So out of the three, rectangular waveguide is most frequently used. Only for very specific applications we choose circular waveguides. Rather than that, we'll go for rectangular waveguide. Popularly used waveguide means rectangular waveguide.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for answering all our questions more patiently. All your answers are more valuable and knowledgeable, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Over
you.
to you, Afrin.
Thank you
Thank you,
all for
Selvaraj.
the patience listening, and thank you the coordinators and Dr. Nalini Joseph ma'am for giving me this opportunity. It was nice presenting to all of you. Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome, ma'am.
Gratitude makes sense of your past, bring peace to today, and create a vision tomorrow. May I call upon Ms. Josh Janita to deliver a vote of thanks. Over to you, Josh Janita.
Thank you, Efren. Good evening, everyone. Respected and most eminent chief guest, and respected principal, and our beloved HOD, and our honorable professors, and my dear friends. I seem it a great honor and privilege to propose hearty word of thanks to those who have directly and indirectly contributed to this webinar on problem-solving approach in waveguides organized by our department. Let me first of all give thanks to the Almighty for making today's webinar a resounding success. First of all, I would like to thank our chief guest and resource person, Dr. N. Subhashini. We are really enlightened with your knowledge and presence, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for your very interesting and thought-provoking session. We were very glad to gain knowledge about different types of waveguides like parallel, circular, and rectangular waveguides, types of waves in a detailed manner, and especially problem solving in these three waveguides. We have learned the formula with their units and also learned to solve the problems using those formulae. It was very informative and knowledgeable to our students. And I would like to thank our respected principal, Dr. Sujata Anand. Thank you, ma'am, for giving us this opportunity to bring out our talents. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our beloved HOD, Dr. Nalini Joseph, for words of encouragement and our support and guidance. My heartfelt thanks to all our faculty members and student coordinators for their involvement and the willingness who made this webinar a grand success. No program can be successful with a single person, an inspiring quote by Martin Luther. I extend my big thanks to our department and I thank all the participants who showed up their interest for the webinar with the utmost curiosity. Once again, thank you everyone who all are gathered here and made this event a successful one. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Josh Janita. Ends are not bad things. They just mean something else is about to begin. My heartily thanks to everyone for making this event a grand success. It would have not been possible with you all. Thank you each and everyone. Dear participant, the feedback link has been posted in the chat box. Do fill it before leaving the session so that you will receive your certificate within 2 to 3 days. Thanks for participating.
Okay. Good evening, all. On behalf of our department, faculty members, coordinators, and the students, I thank Subhashini madam for the marvelous power-packed performance, ma'am. Really, I am very happy to hear your
Thank you,
teaching,
ma'am.
how much effort you have put to teach all those things patiently, and it proves your dedication towards teaching for the students. I I know as a teacher, as a faculty, I worked with you. I know your dedication. But when you give
Thank
a
you, ma'am.
webinar, the dedication and the sincerity and the commitment and this goes without any doubt, madam. Your teaching was very excellent, and really your problem solving rounds will help the students to score high marks. And now the inhibitions would have gone from the students, whether I can pass,
Thank you.
whether this subject is a tough, those inhibitions will be would have been eradicated. Even though our teachers have did a good job, yeah, teachers like you from other institutions will give a different perspective, different methodology, and different way to solve your problem. Okay, so really hats off you to Subhashini ma'am. I'm really honored that identify you in the right time to take a webinar for our students. So hope the session would have been very interesting. Students, I think from the way you have asked all the questions and the way the students have been impacted, okay, it proves make use of the webinars like this. So we are doing all those bringing different expert lectures or expert from other institution is for you to improve and fine tune your performance as well as the knowledge gain. You cannot go and attend, sit in a Valium Engineering College to attend for Subhashini ma'am class. But from this, she is doing exclusive job. So this itself is a great blessings for you. So thanks a lot on behalf of my team. I wholeheartedly, sincerely thank Subhashini ma'am. Well done, Subhashini. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity, ma'am. My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Welcome.
Shall I leave, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am, you can leave, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for this
Thank
wonderful
you.
presentation, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Stay tuned with us for upcoming webinars on ecosystem restoration by Dr. N. Jayaprakash on 4th June at 4 p.m. and effective organizational culture and people management on 5th June at 5 p.m. Please do pray for the affected person with COVID-19 and their speedy recovery. Stay home, stay safe, and stay healthy. Thank you all.
Stacey, ma'am, shall I end the meeting?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.